What's up guys, Syiler here, and we are here with a solo queue support tier list for patch 5.3. This list will cover champions that do very well in solo queue right now, and others that don't do so well. Now keep in mind this list has been generated from statistics, the skill level of the champion, and my personal knowledge and experience. Some champions may be higher on the list than you'd expect, some may be lower, and some might not be on the list at all. That doesn't mean they're not good. It just means on average they just don't do as well, but that doesn't mean if you're skilled with the champion you can still make it work. So don't look at this list as I must play these champions, but just to give you more of an idea of what's working right now. So for God tier we have Leona, Annie and Blitz, all fairly easy to play and see extremely high win rates. So these are champions if you're new to support you want to look to pick up. Next up we have tier 1, Sona, Nami and Janna. Once again fairly basic champions to play, see fairly good success rate and win most lane matchups. Next up we have tier 2, Brom, Morgana, Velkoz and Taric. These champions may be a little bit more difficult to play, or they're just not as good, or they don't see as many good matchups, or they have a lower play rate. Finally we have tier 3, Thresh, Alistair, Karma, Soraka and Lulu. These champions may be extremely difficult to play and to be good at, or they may not just be very good right now. So that is the tier list in its basics, and now we're going to talk more about why the champions are where they are. So if you want to stick around for that bit, then make sure you do. First up we have the God tier and we have Leona. Leona has seen a lot of play again recently, especially in the competitive scene. And I'm surprised she fell out of play. She's very basic to play and understand. She's passively tanky because of her W, and she provides a lot of lockdown, especially on one target. If you catch someone out of position with a Zenith Blade, chances are they're gonna die in your lockup. She provides essentially a point and click stun. You press Q, you auto the person you want to stun, they're now stunned. You can follow that up with your solar flare to guarantee that the stuns will connect, while if you were to just throw your solar flare out first, it's not guaranteed that it'll land, but if you've already got them in a stun, then you follow up with another stun, they're going to be stunned for a while. So Leona is very good in lane phase. She can be very aggressive, or she can play back and play passive if the enemy engages on you. She provides both the peel and the engage. So overall, a very well balanced champion and sees the win rates to follow that. Next up we have Annie. And once again a champion that kind of fell out of flavour, but she's back, and that's mostly why Leona returned, to be honest, because Annie doesn't do too well versus Leona. Annie provides a high amount of damage, and she has very good base damage as well, along with good scaling on her abilities. She has a point and click stun on her Q, she has an AoE stun on her ultimate and her W, and she has a little bit of tankiness through her E. So overall it isn't too bad of a champion. You don't need a huge amount of items to be able to kill someone, or at least help your team kill someone, and if you do get ahead, you can kill their AD carry or their AP carry on your own. You don't need a huge amount of items, and you do a lot of damage in your combo. If you're not very confident in landing the Tibber's skill shot or your W skill shot, you can always hit one person with your Q, and then follow it up with the W Tibbers just to ensure you're going to land those abilities. So she's a little bit more difficult to understand in the lane phase, but if you can understand that and understand her positioning, then she's very, very powerful, and you can carry games on your own as Annie. And her roams are very good as well. If you get mobility boots and run to, say, like mid lane with Tibbers, you're going to basically insta-gib someone. Next up is Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank doesn't see too high success in lower elos. I guess that's because he relies a lot on a skill shot, and his skill shot is a commitment. If you throw that hook out and it grabs, say for example, a Jarvan, there's no throwing him back again. You've now got a Jarvan in your team. So you do have to understand who you're trying to grab. But the good thing about Blitz is he's always relevant in the game. Even if you're 0-10, if you land a hook and a knock-up on their AD carry or their AP carry, chances are they're going to die, or they're going to blow flashes, or they're going to blow something to get out of that situation. And if you can kill them, you've turned a 5v5 into a 5v4 instantly by landing one ability. So his hook can be very, very strong in games that you may not be winning, or that are very close. One hook can completely change the tide of a fight. The great thing about him as well, if you rush early mobilities, you can literally run at people and hook them, there's no real way for them to escape that. So early mobility roams on Blitz are very, very good for impacting the game overall. If you run at mid lane with Mobo boots and your W on, they're not really going to be able to outrun that because chances are they have level 1 boots or they have no boots at all. Next up we have tier 1 and we have Sona. Sona is once again fairly easy to play. She provides very high poke damage. She's a little bit susceptible to being killed. She's very squishy, so things like Leona, Annie will have a very easy time in killing her if she's out of position. But she provides that poke if you can learn to use it properly. She provides the sustain if you're not too comfortable with moving out of position to poke, and her sustain's very good as well. It's not a huge mana cost, and it'll heal up your AD carry for them to do trades. And she also provides the stun, which is an AoE stun. It isn't a huge range, but it's big enough that it can once again make a big impact in a fight if you can get like a 2-3 man stun. Next up we have Janna. Once again, following the same traits as the other champions, very, very easy to play. I'd say Janna's probably one of the easiest supports to play because she affects a game without really trying to. Her passive gives 8% move speed, at least right now it does in 5.3. And that is huge. It's huger than it seems because being able to dodge like a blitz hook easier early game when you've got no boots is a big deal. It basically just allows your team to dodge things that they normally wouldn't be able to dodge because they don't have the movement speed to do it. And you've given them the movement speed by doing nothing, just by being present. Her Q is a knock-up, and the knock-up is bigger the longer the charge. Her W is a point and click slow. You pick the person you want to slow, they're now slowed. And her E is a shield that also provides AD for the target. So if you put it on your AD carry, they're going to take less damage and also do more damage. So you're essentially helping them win trades and stay safe. Next up we have Nama. Kind of follows the same. She's kind of like a mix between a Janna and a Sona. She provides a little bit of CC with her Q. She provides the sustain and a little bit of poke. And she also provides a sort of an attack stim for your AD carry. You put on your E on your AD carry. Their autos are going to be hitting for more, and they're also going to slow the target. Her ultimate is a engage or a disengage, so you have that kind of utility as well there. Next up, tier 2, we have Brom. And Brom is, he's kind of like a mix between like a Leona and maybe a Nami, I guess, or an Annie, I don't know. His damage output isn't hugely high, and it's a lot more difficult to do what you need to do on Brom. His stun takes time to charge up, so a lot of the times you won't actually get the stun off before the AD carry moves away or whatever. So it's not a reliable stun. He does sponge some damage for your AD carry, and he can block some really important spells, which can be huge. But the amount of times you really block anything that important is fairly low, especially in high reloads. People will wait for you to have used your wall before they use like Graves or something like that. So it's a lot harder to be more useful on Brom. And once again, he has an ult similar to Nami's. It's shorter range, so it's a lot more difficult to use for the engage or disengage. Next up we have Morgana. And Morgana has seen less play rate recently because I guess it's a lot more risky to do what she needs to do, while for example Leona can just get in there and lock someone down. Morgana has to land a bind, or go into the team and use her ultimate, and if she's behind, it's very difficult to do that without dying instantly. But if you get ahead and you get your early Zonyas, you can be a huge effect for the team. You've got percentage damage on your pool, and you've got a bind that lasts way too long, along with Black Shield, which can be a huge like help, especially versus things like Vi. Vi essentially and Skarner get shut down by Morgana. So she's a good pick into things that have single target spells and ultimates that they use on like your AD carry. For example, like a Malzahar or a Vi or a Skarner. Pick Morgana into that and you'll see a lot of success in keeping your AD carry alive, essentially. And a bind, if you catch someone with a bind, it can essentially mean a death, but if they're in their team, it's not as good as a Blitzcrank hook where you pull them out of position, you just essentially lock them in position. Next up is Taric. Taric sees fairly low play rate and isn't that great, but he does see very high win rate in the games that he's played, so I thought I'd put him on the list anyway. He provides a stun, single target point and click stun. The downside is it has a very short range and Taric has no gap closers, so he literally has to run at them and then stun them. The counterplay to that is they just run away. So there's a lot of times it's difficult to kind of actually get your stun off effectively. But versus a full AD team, Taric can be a menace because of the armor aura he provides, and chances are they'll have an AD assassin which will get into your team, so you can peel for your AD carry by just stunning them. He also provides a bit of sustain in lane with his heal. Next up is Velkoz, and Velkoz is a little bit of a tough champion to play. He's all skill shot reliant, so he has no point and click things. He has very high damage output, so if you want more damage than Anna, then he is the guy to go for, but he provides less utility as... well, his utility isn't less, it's just harder to use, I guess. He provides a slow with his Q, along with poke damage. He provides very high damage due to his passive, which procs for true damage. He also has a knock, like back or knock aside with his E, so it can be used for engaging or disengaging. And his ultimate, if you get a full channeled ultimate on 2 to 3 people in a team fight, it's going to be doing a lot of damage. So if you can learn to play Velkoz and learn to stay back and kind of use your spells effectively, he can be very, very powerful in a fight and helps your team scale to late game. So if you have a very sort of mid-game team and you need that little bit of extra late game damage, then Velkoz is definitely a champion to look at. Next up we have the final tier, and in that tier we have Thresh. Thresh sees very low win rate because he's hard to make use of. His kit is, I guess, very unforgiving. If you don't use the kit fully, then you might as well be playing something like a Leona or a Blitzcrank. His hook, he does provide more utility than Blitzcrank, but once again, it's harder to use. His hook, you have to go sort of halfway in to do anything with it, but it is a very long period lockdown, and you can choose whether you want to go in on it. You don't pull anyone into your team or anything along those lines, it's just a small duration CC. His Flay can be very, very effective if used properly. It provides good damage, and the passive on his Flay as well provides decent damage as well if used properly. The Lantern is a huge spell, but you just have to be very aware and understand when you should be using it as a shield and when you should be sort of further back from your teams to give it to your AD carry so he can get out of position. Like, I see a lot of Threshes, they'll just stand on top of their AD carry and they'll throw the Lantern down. Great, your AD carry is going to move 2 inches, but if you're in a good position, you're like round the side of a wall, you know, you've hooked someone else and you throw your Lantern to your AD carry, you're helping them reposition so that they can continue doing what they need to do. Meanwhile, you put your box down, you're flaying them away, you know, you're doing everything that you need to do now in the team fight. So positioning and understanding the kit is huge on Thresh. If you can get good at him, he's very, very powerful support. Otherwise, he's difficult to play, and I'd say avoid him if you're not very good at him. Next up is Alistair. Alistair is even more unforgiving than Thresh because his kit makes him go in. There's no halfway. He has to go in to use his pull combo properly, and his pull combo is very difficult to get off. The amount of times I've seen someone headbutt someone away from our team when we're trying to kill them, or knock them over a wall to safety and stuff like that is way too often. And his sustain in lane is kind of low with the heal, it isn't that great, but he is a great meat shield with his ultimate. He can sponge a lot of damage, although he sees one of the lowest win rates as a support, so overall, I'd pick something else basically. There's a lot more useful champions than Alistair, but once again, if you can get very good at him, his kit is fairly good, it's just being able to make use of it properly. Next up is Karma, and Karma has a lot of things in her kit. She has a speed up, a shield, a snare, a heal for herself, poke damage, she has a lot in her kit, but all of it is fairly average. So it just makes her a bit lackluster overall as a champion. Once again, if you can learn to land your poke properly, you can win an early game lane phase from landing like a couple of empowered Qs and a couple of normal Qs, but outside of that, she doesn't really provide too much for your team. I'd much rather have like the disengage from a Nami, or the stun from a Sona, or the damage from an Annie, So overall, she just does a few. She's like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. She doesn't really do anything too special. Next up, we have Soraka, and Soraka's fairly low down, but has good success rate. So the reason she's this low is because she's very difficult to play. Kinda like Thresh, she sees great success in higher elo, but very, very low win rates in low elo. And that's because her playstyle is very different, especially to how old Soraka was. You have to be very careful about where you're stood, and you have to make use of your snare silence, your heals, your poke. You have to make use of your kit overall, and also your ultimate passive and things like that. If you're not, you're just not going to be very useful because you don't really do anything other than heal and do a little bit of damage and, you know, put down your snare. But if you can make effective use of your silent snare and your heals, you can literally like carry a team fight. So once again, if you can learn to position with the champion and learn the playstyle of the champion, it's a very strong one. But most people don't understand it, and thus they see low win rates. And finally, Lulu. Lulu once again is just, her shields aren't quite as good as Janna's. Her poke damage isn't quite as good as like a Velkoz or an Anna. Her ultimate is okay. It can keep your AD alive, but if you get behind, then you're not going to be hitting level 11 soon enough, and your E is not going to be high enough level, and things like that. And it's very easy to lose lane on Lulu. And if you lose lane, that's essentially you out of the game. You don't scale too well with no items, so it's very difficult to see success on Lulu. While, for example, as I said, like a Velkoz, if he gets behind, he's still going to be doing very high damage. A Blitz, if he's behind, all he has to do is hook. And Annie has very high base scaling, and she still has like a stun regardless. So while Lulu can do a little bit of peel with her Q and her W, it just isn't quite as effective as all the other champions. So that's why she's down here. And there are a few champions that have been missed off this list. As I said, that doesn't mean they're bad. They're just not considered the general supports and don't really see much success rate or play rate within the support role. But that doesn't mean you're not good at them, and it doesn't mean they can't be good. So don't let that affect you. Thanks for watching, guys. Look out for another one of these solo queue tier lists coming soon. I hope to cover all the different roles if you enjoyed it. And if you'd like me to change how I present the information in the video, let me know and I'll edit that for the future videos. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.